Oh, hey, you. Did you miss any football over the weekend? Well, guess what? We have a Snaps game recap made just for you. Enjoy.
And let's start in the Big Ten with Ohio State and Penn State, because this was very impressive resilience from the Buckeyes for me here. We talked about in these massive games this season, a lot of times the home team has been the one coming out on top. And I thought that was going to be enough to push Penn State over the top. And then they go up 10-0 after a pick six. Gus Johnson was about to lose his fucking mind on that call. I thought his soul left his body. And this is where, I've always been a bit of a Ohio State doubter. Probably a bit of laziness on my own part more than anything. But even with the weapons that Ohio State had, Aaron, when it was 10-0 in that environment against that defense, I didn't think Ohio State could get it done. And so to find a way and to come up with the stops when they had him, we'll talk about it. But what a toughness test passed for Ohio State. Will Howard, Quinshon Judkins, the defense, just the whole team, top to bottom. This was a massively impressive win for the Buckeyes.
Well, this is twice now in a month that they've gone on the road into two of the most hostile environments in the country, and was a possible holding, or not holding penalty, but a pass interference, offensive pass interference from being able to attempt a field goal to win a game against Oregon, the now number one team in the country, and then going on the road against Penn State in that hostile environment, and then end up winning this football game. So there is no one as battle tested as Ohio State. Maybe Georgia, obviously going on the road to Tuscaloosa, going on the road to Austin, them winning their second go round as well against Texas, losing the first one to Alabama. But man, really impressed with Ohio State. And they won it in a way that I didn't think they would win it. And that was dominating the lines of scrimmage. Your offensive line dominated what they did, mixing and matching up front, finding the five that they needed to go on the road into Penn State, into that environment against the defense line, and not only just win, but dominate. 180 yards rushing, 4.7 yards per carry with that offense line that we were dogging all week, and then flip it over to the other side, and they dominated the lines of scrimmage on defense as well. So the toughness on the road in the trenches got them that win. And that was something that I did not think I could count on for Ohio State, mostly on the offense side of the football.
It's funny, Aaron, because we sit here and we talk for so long about the sport of football, and we try to be creative and we try to come up with the angles. But I mean, I look at this game, I look at South Carolina A&M, I look at Clemson, Louisville, and it all starts up front. I mean, right? Like at the end of the day, it is so rare in which you can overcome a distinct disadvantage in the trenches. And that gets back to kind of like the finish from Ohio State team, or for the finish of Ohio State. That was some real man shit.
Yep.
I mean, Warren has that unbelievable play to get it down to the 3-yard line. End of the game. Chance to score, take the lead at home, all the momentum on Ohio, on Penn State side, and they try to run it 3 times in a row, and Ohio State just fucking rocks him on the jaw.
It was bad play
3 times in a row.
Was bad play
I agree. No, look, I'm like,
still,
why not put Warren? Why not put Warren in the Wildcat again? And just like, I feel like Warren has to touch the ball there somewhere.
Give it to him 3 times. Give it to him 3 times.
I agree.
3 times.
But still, despite that, Penn State said, no, we want to fucking square up and trade blows. Like, let's bang, like 2 UFC fighters deciding to stand up, a little old school mano a mano. And Ohio State, not only do they break him on the stop, but the 4-minute offense to end the game, that is, and I know this is cliche and I apologize, but the same way that you see Aaron get his dick card for like an anticipatory throw across the middle behind a zone defender, maybe, like watching an offense run the ball when the other team knows they're going to run the ball and just lift them up like Bane did Batman and just break them over your knee. That is some of the best football in the world to me. That is a sweet, sweet vintage.
What has kept Ohio State from winning a championship the past few years? What has kept them from winning the Big Ten? It's they have not been physical at the lines of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And listen, this offensive line still is far from perfect. This was a great first step to maybe building the confidence for them going forward. But they did. Ryan Day reestablished himself and his identity defensively, and now they've turned themselves into one of the best defenses in the country. There's no doubt about that. Even that was a tough game against Oregon. That's a really good Oregon offense. I still firmly believe Ohio State is one of the best defenses in the country. In the offense, if the offense line can do what they did in this game, that is the missing piece. That physicality, that nitty gritty in the trenches. Can you win? It's like that was good to see for Ohio State. For Penn State, it comes down to Drew Aller still played great. Drew Aller throwing the football. I thought Drew Aller running the football was the most dynamic player for their offense besides obviously Tyler Warren.
Well,
they don't have receivers. I said this weeks ago.
Okay. Wait,
they don't have skill besides Tyler.
So again, credit the YouTube highlight packages here, because right here I wanted to ask with this Penn State's weapons, can it get anything against Buckeye secondary, Aller's legs? Yeah, sure, they make a play every now and then, but like obviously Ohio State's going to take that, and then over time the pass rush starts to win. So I'm not I'm not crazy, right? Like Ohio State secondary had their weapons blanketed the fuck down, except for Warren maybe getting through a couple times.
There are no weapons. Like there's no weapons.
Yeah, that's what I mean. No, yes, you're right. I mean, they have their receivers. I mean, their skill positions. Yes. They had them on fucking lockdown.
Ohio State had the ability to say we can play man on man on the outside. We can lock those guys up. We have to worry about 44, no doubt about it. That guy is, I think, maybe my favorite player in all of college football this season. But we can commit more guys to the run because we can win the one-on-one matchups defensively on the outside. Penn State does. How did they beat USC? Tyler Warren had one of the greatest games for a tight end of all time.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
They don't have consistency, elite playmakers that can win on the outside against good corners. They don't. And that's why Drew had to do what he did with his legs early on the football game. And that's the reason why they couldn't get the run game going from their two talented running backs, because Ohio State one is already good up front. And when you can add a seventh defender in the box, there's just too many guys. You have to win your one-on-ones at the receiving spot, and they don't have those players right now. So Penn State's a great defense. I think Drew's playing a terrific season. You have two great running backs. You have an elite tight end. But what's going to hold them back is they don't have skill for the receiving position.
Well, and you know what else, Aaron? They have a dangerous offensive setup when you combine it with a coach of the tenor of James Franklin, because I used to see this in my own days with Les Miles back in the day, where their rushing attack is good enough to beat 98% of the teams that they play.
Yep.
So those weapons aren't really needed. But when you run in to the big dogs who can stop your main punch, which most teams cannot, they cannot stop, they cannot counter Penn State's main punch. But when you run into someone who can, what's your counter? What's your second option? And Ohio State's an awful matchup. Like if you're telling me Ohio State can just straight up out tough Penn State, then how does Penn State win? They don't. And also Michigan, the Buckeyes are going to be getting some golden pants this year, dude. This Ohio State team should take fucking revenge on Michigan for the last 3 years. I think they're going to obliterate them.
Well, you bring up Michigan there, and Michigan has not had the receivers in years past to threaten, but they were just so much more physically dominant.
They could out physical them. Penn State couldn't. They
couldn't. And I thought Penn State could do that this year. Maybe not to the same extent of Michigan, but the fact that you're at your home, you have a quarterback that can at least maybe keep a defense honest. It was feeling like there was they could out physical Ohio State in this ball game, and they didn't. So yes, major credit to Ohio State for actually showing up in a game and being the more physical football team on both lines of the scrimmage.
And Quinshon Judkins, I mean, this is why you go sign him, right?
Yeah.
Late in the season, he doesn't have the wear and tear that he's had the last couple of years. Actually, probably a bit. It's kind of funny. I think his lighter statistical output this year, which is still very good on average, I wonder if that ends up almost being more favorable in NFL eyes because it takes a little wear and tear off. Because like they know what Quinton Judkins can do. You can obviously see the skill set, only he's not being able to ask to carry the team all season. And now late into the year, he can keep those legs even stronger and more underneath him, and maybe even start to gain a little bit of momentum here at the end of the year, where Ole Miss is kind of running him into the ground for the last couple of years.
Are there any questions about Ohio State in your mind right now? Like I feel like Will Howard's answered the bell. I mean, that was a terrible.
Yeah, no, look, okay, I'll read.
But
he's
what I wrote
Will Howard. I said, Will Howard, what a win. I'm on board. How could it not be with that finish? There will be worse matchups, but if you're just going to sit back there and bang, you don't want Ohio State. Like, yeah, so yeah, Will Howard has won me over for sure. He's capable of winning a national championship. That's what you're asking, especially in the context of this year's field of teams.
Yep.
Where, as we'll talk about, there continues to be this kind of theme of no prohibitive favorite. But a massive win. And, you know, it's funny. We just talked about from the Buckeye perspective, but about as brutal as you could imagine for Penn State fans. I mean, you are in one of the worst spots in sports, whereas you have a guy that actually is objectively awesome. And I hate that, you know, I don't hate it. It's how it works. So we boil these conversations down to something like James Franklin, but there's an obvious pattern here. He is so fucking good, but the ultimate kind of close but no cigar sort of coach. And it's brutal because it's not easy to get there. Like it's next to impossible to be as consistent as James Franklin has been, but that consistency extends from the wins to the losses as well. And that's now 8 years in a row. I think it's a 4th in a row at home.
But at least they're going to most likely still get to 11 wins this season.
Yeah.
So I mean, look, be one up. I mean,
we'll have to see. I mean, we thought about Clemson as well, and you know, we'll get there.
Yeah, but they got Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, Maryland.
Watch out for PJ Fleck to row the boat. No, I don't know. You're probably right. You know, exactly, because their run game, right? Like none of those teams will be able to counter the run game. You're right.
At least the wins have been the difference between them and Clemson is Clemson beat a bunch of teams that had losing records.
True.
At least Penn State's beat Illinois. When they beat USC, they had a winning record. They beat Wisconsin. So
not that more. Strong of a resume, but stronger than Clemson's.
Stronger than Clemson's resume. A lot stronger than Clemson's.
Yeah, but for Penn State fans, I don't know what to tell you because I don't think it's like a fire James Franklin thing, but like I also know how unbelievably frustrating this has to be. You're kind of like Marvin Lewis with the Bengals, right? That the same success that made you so great at first is now your greatest enemy because you cannot overcome yourself. But hey, hell of a win for the Buckeyes, dude. I'm on board.
Well, I'd say that was pretty fun. Maybe had a laugh or two, potentially even learned a thing along the way. If you did enjoy it, please consider hitting the like button, subscribing, and we'll see you next time for more snaps.